Introduction. Operating since 1945, the United Nations is viewed by many states as an instrument to address the most pressing issues all over the world. Throughout the years of its existence, the United Nations has been successful in tackling an array of globally essential issues such as transnational and environmental threats, violence, and global poverty. United Nations is involved in promoting democracy and human rights in many countries. Out of all the activities that the United Nations is involved in, maintaining peace and security still remains the United Nations' fundamental mission. In fact, the word peace is repeated 5 times in Article 1 of the United Nations Charter. Analysis. Everyone will agree that the United Nations has contributed immensely to peacekeeping. According to the United States Government Accountability Office, more than 100,000 military and civilian personnel are engaged in United Nations peacekeeping operations in 15 locations in Africa, Europe, Asia, the Americas, and the Middle East. The United Nations total budget for peacekeeping operations amounts to $5.5 billion. The United Nations peacekeeping activities remain a key instrument in maintaining a secure international environment. One of the United Nations' strengths is helping entire nations to save millions of dollars on conducting peacekeeping operations. To compare, the United Nations mission in Haiti cost $428 million, whereas a similar United States operation would have cost twice as much. The United Nations budget and spending are more streamlined, and the practice of employing international staff allows for considerable savings in operations. Aside from resolving regional conflicts, the United Nations' main achievement is helping the international community to resolve the worst crisis of the late 20th century, when the escalation between the United States and Union of Soviet Socialist Republics was high as ever. The United Nations has played a vital role in averting the Third World War. If it wasn't the United Nations' contribution to easing the heightened tension, we would probably not be living in a world as we know today. Despite the United Nations' efforts, there are still many parts of the world ravaged by war, and in some cases, the United Nations seems powerless in altering the situation. Recent events have proved that even such a powerful organization as the United Nations has its shortcomings and deficiencies. The member states realize that a comprehensive reform of the United Nations is needed in order to streamline and enhance its activities in achieving its mission. Although the United Nations puts forward the central principle of national independence, it fails to ensure that nation remains independent and sovereign. Recent events relating to the annexation of Crimea by Russia illustrate the United Nations' inability to ensure the nation's sovereignty. Speaking at the 20th General Assembly in New York in 2015, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko said that his country became the object of external aggression. Poroshenko emphasized that the United Nations today is unable to address some of the most pressing issues. He also added that the United Nations Council requires reforms to reflect the realities of the 21st century. The main weakness of the United Nations is the lack of its own army. Initially, a military unit was planned to be added to the Security Council in order to tackle problems more efficiently. However, the idea remained on paper only. Currently, the United Nations is comprised of international military staff, each with its own rules and standards. The main weakness of this is that soldiers from various countries are equipped and trained in their own way, according to their country standards, and when they embark on a joint operation, the divergence in training and orders results in collaboration difficulties. This ramification may be easily tackled if the member states agree to the creation of the common army that would have its uniform military code, thus enhancing collaboration between soldiers and units. The United Nations and its promotion of democratic values may present a rather intriguing contradiction. Although it has been more than 70 years since its creation, the composition of power is the same as it was back in 1945, with 5 countries having more power and prerogative than others. The distribution of power today does not reflect the needs of the current global community. In order for the United Nations to be more flexible and instrumental in tackling global challenges, more member states need to join on a permanent basis. Europe is more diverse. There are a lot of Asian and Latin countries that also need to have their say in the United Nations. Conclusion. In my opinion, the employment system in the United Nations needs to be reformed as well. The United Nations is comprised of people mainly over 40 or older. The staff of the United Nations needs to be comprised of at least 30% of the younger generation who might bring their fresh insight and modern-day expertise into the core of the organization. There is no denying that the United Nations efforts in peacekeeping have helped many countries in establishing security, and millions of people feel safe now. However, as everything is evolving, the United Nations should do too, and the above deficiencies need to be addressed within the United Nations, and reforms, perhaps dramatic, need to be adopted in order to streamline and align its actions with the realities of today. Study Corgi can help you make your studies smarter. Visit studycorgi.com for more samples like this, study tips, and writing tools.